This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
Oh my God, these are dead too. Come on. Alrighty. Welcome back to the Only Friends podcast. This is episode number, I'm going to guess 312? 312? Yes?
Yeah,
No?
yeah, sure.
Fucking
324, man.
324?
Come on.
324?
Don't sell us short.
324.
Yeah.
Thank you. These actually work.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I went through 2 pairs of headphones now before getting.
The 5-minute countdown is when you
That's where we're supposed to do that
Yeah,
stuff, but we got
yeah.
into some riveting pre-podcast conversations.
Some
We did.
breaking news.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
there it is. Look, you guys sound so much better with these headphones on. Oh my God.
All right. And you look so much more professional too.
Wow. You know me, professional podcaster,
Yeah.
speaker.
You're the B squad.
Yeah, leader of the B Squad. The B Squad is here Friday. Conrad is busy living a wonderful life with a significant other. And
He is.
Matt is with his significant other, Tom Wheaton, in Daytona
Yeah.
for this 525 poker tournament, as well as some commercials. I didn't know that we had a professional actor
Right,
within
we
our
do.
midst.
Yeah, I saw that.
He-
I can't wait to see this commercial.
Yeah, as his Instagram story said, he is not an actor.
We have some behind the scenes stuff.
Yes.
Take a
Let's
look.
check it out.
Chips, here we come. Speed for camera. Sound.
Roll it.
Sound speeds. Scene 1, take 14. Set. Stand by. Action.
Poker players often ask how I achieve success at the highest level. I'm Matt Berkey, and I play poker professionally.
Cut.
It's so good getting updates in the chat of him saying, I needed to say, I'm Matt Berkey and I'm all in 15 times.
That was my favorite part of that whole clip was take 14.
Run it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's not many one takes in the acting industry.
It's tough. It's tough, you know? It's like, you know, he's a poker player. He's not an actor.
Well, it's a good thing because he'd have to be on strike if he was.
Yeah, it's true, right? Yeah, exactly.
Is that a thing right now?
Are the actors on strike or just the writers? Or both? Both are on strike?
Writers and actors are on strike. If you're if you're a Screen Actors Guild member, you're on strike right now. So
All right. Well,
I hope they didn't hire any people, any SAG people, any what do they call them, scabs, people who break the people who cross the picket lines.
I'm
Hope
glad
didn't
they
hire
just
those people
I'm
for that
glad they were
commercial.
able to get the Barbie movie out.
Yeah, I
before
mean,
this
as long as
happened.
movies are still actually coming out. Right
Oppenheimer
now,
comes out today. That one I really do.
Both
want
of them
to
come
see.
out today.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do both on one day.
Yeah. I think I prefer Oppenheimer over Barbie.
Probably going to
Slightly.
be pretty good. Yeah.
Can someone please explain to me the hype behind the Barbie movie? I mean, I'm going to a preview of it
Barbie,
tonight,
man.
but man,
A preview of it?
I'm going to like
You're going to a premiere.
a premiere thing. I don't.
You have to wear a
Sure.
like a tux.
I don't
Is it
know.
a black tie affair?
I don't really know what's going on.
Mhm.
I just had a friend that said, "Hey, do you want to come to this thing?" And I'm like, "Sure, I can talk about Barbie."
Yeah.
It's supposed to be really funny. Like, it's
Okay.
supposed to be really, like a really interesting sort of funny take on these characters that have been around forever, or these,
Yeah,
these, like,
seriously. They have been.
concepts that have been around
It's the
forever.
50s maybe.
Yeah,
40s.
like I think that's the general gist of why people are excited about it. But I don't know.
Landon, is this your first red carpet?
I don't think I'm going to any red carpet thing.
He's not
I
going to
don't-
the actual premiere.
Yeah, I don't really know what's going on,
Mhm.
but I'll figure out more.
He's going to see the movie essentially.
No. He's going to be with the paparazzi.
I'll figure out more as we go.
Are you Ken in this situation?
I'm trying to be Ken,
Yep.
man.
Who's your Barbie?
God knows. Lord knows. I pray for that woman.
Maybe what's happening is you're just going to a regular movie and someone's told you it's like a fancy thing.
Maybe.
Like, yeah.
I wonder what Chauncey thinks. I can't bring Chauncey though. Chauncey's leaving us. This is his last episode.
This
Oh,
is
that's
Chauncey's
terrible.
last episode.
Yeah.
That's really terrible.
This is. I didn't really want to have to break the news like this, but apparently he's gonna go back home to his mom.
Yeah, he's a Eurocat now.
Yep.
Yep.
You're a Euro, buddy. You came to this land. You took our money.
He used to play cash nice and quick. Now he's just going to tank every hand.
Yeah, he's being deported.
He's being deported against his will.
But, he won't have to pay taxes on his winnings, so that's fine.
Oh, that's true.
That means,
true.
okay, look, Chauncey, look at me. Look, I don't appreciate it, but I will swap with you for my own personal benefit.
You should.
I would swap with you for tax-free money. Anyways.
I have a few announcements.
Go on.
First, I have to give a huge shout out to my mother, Mary Lamanna, who turns 70 years young today. Happy birthday, Mom.
Wow. Happy birthday to Tortoise's mom.
Tortoise's mom. Yep.
Mom,
70.
We have a graphic. Yeah, let's
And by
go.
70, I mean she's 39.
That's right.
I've passed her up.
Yep.
I'm older than my mom, so happy 39th birthday.
The tortoise has become the hare.
Yep. Also, we have a new course out on Solve for Why TV. The man himself, Andrew Brokus, has put out another course. It's about bluff catching. I believe we have a little bit of a preview for you.
I am Andrew Brokus. In this series, we will be talking about bluff catching, how to do it, when to do it, and when not to do it, because I think most people do it too much. We will be talking about the concept of minimum defense frequency, and then in subsequent installments, we'll look at some examples of how this plays out in specific situations and how you can use this theory and these concepts to help you make better bluff catching and better folding decisions.
So for everyone who has an all-in access pass, you can go ahead to Solve for Why TV or solveforwhy.io and check that out. If you don't, you can get sign up for the monthly, and you will get a 2-week free trial. You'll be able to watch this course in a day. So I mean, this course, other courses, I absolutely love Brokus's courses. I don't know how many he's done for us now. Maybe half a dozen, maybe not that many. 4 or 5.
4 or 5, yeah, I think.
His courses, the man right to my right here, Mr. Matt Hunt, you and him, those are my favorite courses on the site. You guys break things down so well. So everybody, if you want to go out and check that out, go to solveforwhy.io and, watch it for free with the free trial.
When are we going to get the tortoise course?
The tortoise course is
how to be a tortoise.
No, how to finish 14th in the class.
I think, aren't you releasing a trailer at the academy?
I am releasing a trailer. I should, yes. But we do have an academy coming up. It is going to be September 1st to the 3rd. It's going to be back to the old format. It's a 3-day academy, lecture in the morning, and then gameplay in the afternoon. You can go to academy.solveforwhy.io for more info on that. Mr. Matt Hunt will be there, along with Berkey, along with Landon, giving you all the deets on how to, win live cash games.
Yeah. Alrighty. I guess we're going to jump into first topic of conversation being the reports that there was like a shooting going on at Texas Card House in Houston. And I'm probably not equipped to be the one to report on it. So we have a nice clip for you of what did happen from better newscasters than
a security
myself.
guard is being called a hero tonight after taking on armed robbers in a shootout at a spring poker room. The guard survived after being shot multiple times. KPRC2's Corley Peel spoke with the guard's boss and an employee who are both praising that guard tonight. Corley.
The card dealer I spoke with says he had just walked back into Texas Card House after taking a break, and with a matter of seconds, shots were fired. He says he believes the reason why no one inside was seriously hurt is because Officer Jackson stopped the suspects. Hours after a gun battle at Texas Card House, Andrew says he feels lucky to be alive.
The shooting, once it started, it seemed like it didn't stop. It was repeated. There were at least 20 shots fired.
Andrew is a card dealer. He asked us not to show his face. He says the security guard, Officer Jackson, took 7 bullets, protecting everyone inside.
He saved our lives. Every one of us inside that building, myself included, owe our lives to that man.
Officer Jackson's boss, Tommy Wilson, says surveillance cameras show he was ambushed after 4 men showed up trying to rob the poker room.
We could see those individuals exit the vehicle creeping like they didn't want to be seen. And as soon as Officer Jackson turned his back to this parking lot, they ambushed him from the back. and everybody started shooting.
The suspects took off, leaving behind this gun. Andrew says Officer Jackson managed to tell everyone inside the coast was clear. What would you say to him right now?
There are no words other than thank you for what you did. Like you truly, like you put your life on the line for us. You didn't have to.
Andrew is grateful. Officer Jackson lived to know that he is a hero. Officer Jackson's boss and Andrew both tell me they had a chance to visit him in the hospital today. They say he is doing well and he is expected to recover. They are grateful for that, and they said that he is expected to go into surgery today. But again, they are grateful that he survived. Now, the Harris County Sheriff's Office says surveillance video did capture that shooting. They have not released it at this time, but they're urging anyone who has any information about those suspects to come forward. Reporting live from Spring, Corley Peel, KPRC 2 News.
Yeah, so, I mean, the report did way better than I would have been able to do on that stuff. So I guess the topic of conversation would be, how do we feel about the security of, call it, card rooms versus things like casinos? Like, we did have that stuff happen at Bally's last year, you know?
That was a false alarm, though, right?
I think so, along those
You
lines.
mean Horseshoe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like at Horseshoe, there's a whole hysteria thing that did happen.
I thought that was like a pane of glass broke.
Yeah,
and
it was
someone
like-
thought it was a gunshot.
Right, and then there might have been kids throwing firecrackers or something. Yeah, maybe
but
it was
something that wasn't actually
right,
a
and it wasn't
shooter.
even and it trickled all the way. Like somehow it trickled all the way through
all
the
the way
strip.
down the strip. That's what I
'cause-
heard. Yeah,
yeah. People
I
were
wasn't
like in
there
a
that day,
panic.
but-
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
right.
it was a weird, strange day. But yeah, so I guess where do we stand when it comes to the security measures taken that we think, that we know of in both instances,
so
as well as the perception of
right,
safety?
right. Obviously, they did have so I don't know the exact security measures at the Texas Card House. Obviously, they have at least one guard, Officer Jackson. Thank God that he, is going to survive and recover from these injuries. I guess he got shot 7 times, which is wild. But so I don't know if they actually have guards inside and outside, but it's it's scary because obviously he was like ambushed, attacked, and then I'm guessing it just it didn't go according to plan for the for the robbers. Right, so they probably expected to just like subdue him and then go in, rob the place, and leave. And then there ends up being this shootout. They shoot him a bunch of times, and then they're probably like, "Oh, we better get the hell out of here. We're gonna get charged for murder."
Right.
So then they just left, and then they haven't been caught yet. So, yeah, I mean, it's strange because the officer definitely prevented the place from being robbed, and who knows what would have happened inside. Maybe if they did start shooting, then like that dealer said, maybe he did save all their lives, right? But also we don't know. Maybe they just would have went in, robbed the place, and left, which is probably a better situation, in my opinion, than a shootout happening outside. Because then once bullets start flying, that's when people can get killed.
And the security guard was incredibly lucky. Well,
right.
Like if you get shot 7 times and you survive, that's wild.
Right.
So we very easily could have been looking at a situation here where a bullet flies differently, the security guard dies, they get in anyway, and it could have been an absolute
somebody else
nightmare.
catches a stray bullet, a couple people die.
There's all sorts of ways this could have gone that would have been really, really bad. And obviously this guy probably did way more than he's probably not getting paid enough to get shot 7 times and risk his life for these people. So amazing, heroism obviously, but it's kind of scary to think about how bad this could have been with only a small difference in how accurate those guys were who were shooting at the security guard. You know?
Right.
Definitely pretty scary.
I wonder what the standard protocol is as far as all the card rooms in Texas. I have a feeling that they only have 1 security guard per room. I could be wrong, but it sounds like if there were more than 1, we would have heard about it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if there's more than one security guard,
Right.
even if they're inside the building, like you hit
came out,
gunshots
yeah.
outside,
Right,
you're
yeah.
gonna run out to help the guy,
Right.
right? So like when you think about the idea that maybe there was just this one guy protecting a poker room that probably has a massive amount of money inside.
Not only that,
Stuff.
this is one of the bigger card rooms there, right?
I don't know, actually. I don't know which ones are the biggest ones.
Okay.
But yeah, you start to think about, like, is that really enough? Like, do they, expecting this one guy to not only put his life
we don't
on the
know for
line-
sure, right? Maybe
Right.
maybe there were officers inside, and and their protocol is to stay inside and protect the people.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
So we don't
that
know
could
for
be-
sure.
That could be it. But like,
yeah.
if it's just one guy, then you're in a position where, like I say, like if the security guard gets I don't know, like
Overrun,
immobilized, like
right,
if he
right.
or if he just gets shot and just gets shot in the head and dies immediately.
Yeah.
Like these guys who just have free reign, right? So
Right,
like
right.
it's a pretty scary thought to think about how much jeopardy there might be, like in another instance like that, if it is just one guy trying to protect the whole place, you know.
And it's obviously a bigger deterrent if it becomes standard to have 3 or 4 guys now working at these places. But again, I don't know what the margins are for these card rooms, and I'm sure it's probably a lot more expensive to have 4 guys on it at one time. But that certainly, I think, would deter people from trying to pull these kinds of things off if they know there's ramped up security.
Yeah. And
sure.
And at the same time, like, even if they hire more security, it's not like these are like Black Ops guys. Like,
Right.
these are not that high end private security that are like bodyguarding rich people. Like,
We're not. Yeah. That's what I said. I don't know the level of experience that these guys have. Maybe they are ex-military. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But
it sounds like the guys who perpetrated this, they don't sound like hardened, experienced bank robbers or whatever. Like they kind of got a little spooked by the resistance they faced and they ran away. So
it does sound like there's suspicion that these are the same guys that have tried to rob multiple places.
Oh, really?
Card houses
Okay.
before. Yeah.
Interesting.
Are we aware of casino security measures and what goes on, or how much are we aware of that?
We
stuff?
know that it's the difference between the card houses and casinos is night and day, right? I mean, they have cameras everywhere. They have security out the ass. They have, and that is a deterrent. I mean, of course, you do see, casinos being robbed here and there, but I think it's a lot different. When there's just 1 or 2 guards, you're in a strip mall in a parking lot. There's not, it's probably, it's a lot different than someone who has to try to go into a casino and then get out, and so.
We've heard some scary stories.
I think, yeah, right. Like I feel very safe walking into a casino, playing poker, and leaving, as opposed to, being in one of these card houses.
I wonder how that works as well. If they go and just rob the cage, and like, let's say you're playing a cash game, like I assume the card house takes the hit. Like if I just get up with my chips now after the place has been robbed, like I'm still able to cash out, I'm assuming, right?
I have no idea.
I mean,
Yeah,
I would hope.
I would think, but yeah.
I mean, maybe it's like a full tilt situation where they're like, "Oh, we don't have your money anymore."
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
it's a weird one. Hard to know.
I don't know what they could do to start preventing this stuff. I was talking to Landon on the way over. Maybe like figuring out a way to go cashless, right? Like maybe have like an account. You have an account set up at these places where you just load your account up and then play off of that, and you never have to bring cash in or out.
Cashless poker would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they do that for tournament stops in the UK. Like when I played EPT London, it was all cashless. You could not give money.
You can't walk in there with like and buy into a $10,000.
You can't walk in there with like 5 packets, like being $1,000.
So what, you have to like load your like stars count.
You have to put
and then
money in the Hippodrome account, and then they take that. Or other ways to do it was through Luxon Pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were other ways to have money and do stuff like that, but it was certainly a hassle for younger guys. Like I have some friends in the UK poker scene that are pretty young, and if you're under 25, you like have deposit limits, and you have to kind of prove how you have your money because of the gambling laws and things along those lines. Where here, like you just show up with money wherever you want, and you can just go gamble.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit more.
Hello, Orange Cat.
not cashless, but like there was a lot less cash going around in the Bahamas as well. Like I think they had a lot more mechanisms in place for people to pay tournament buy-ins and things like that using other methods besides cash. And
yeah, and I mean, as
feels like a good thing,
right? As you know, technology progresses in different ways, like we see with crypto and that kind of stuff. There are ways to just not have cash, and I think obviously the more we move towards that, the less we will see places like this being targeted. But until then, I think, I mean, it's sad to say, but this is not going to be the last incident in Texas, right? Because this seems like every few months we see something like this happening.
It's not the first one,
right? It's not the first one. It's almost certainly not going to be the last one.
And
so
it's not even
something
like
needs to be done. Right?
Sometimes it's not even card room attacks or like things outside of a parking lot, and
right.
that's anywhere,
right? Of
So
course,
it's just a matter of trying to keep yourself and do the due diligence and being like as safe as possible.
Yeah, and Texas probably has the most lax gun laws in the in the country, so it's very easy for people to obtain or have guns and go into a place like this.
Yeah, I mean it just seems like if you are a business that's going to have a massive amount of cash on site in Texas,
right, you're
gonna be vulnerable.
Yeah,
because it has like the highest number of guns per capita, and if you've got a lot of money sitting around, and it's it's an environment where people, a bunch of guys with guns could just be like, hey, let's rob this place because they're not gonna have great security.
Right.
Like you put two and two together over time, like you're gonna get stuff like that
right.
happening.
And
so,
I'm sure like, and I don't know, like I said, we don't know the exact security measures of all these places. I'm sure maybe some places in Texas are more secure than others, but I think something definitely has to be done. And this is just like they want to keep moving legislation forward and hoping to get everything very regulated in Texas. And I think the more of these incidents that happen, takes to make it a step back, right?
Yeah, I mean, it gives people more reason to say, well, look, having more gambling brings more violence. Like
right.
it gives people ammunition, so to speak, to make that argument. So it just makes everybody look bad.
Yeah, I mean, the cashless situation seems pretty interesting. Like the less money around.
Right. If there's no money to rob, then there's no incentive to show up with a bunch of guns.
Yeah. I think some things are a lot easier to do in theory than in practice.
Right.
Sometimes they make it easier. Cue the transition to GTO AI.
Oh, there we go.
That just recently came out. That's my job. I'm good at these things. I try.
Yeah.
So we've seen the community kind of have mixed feelings about GTO AI coming out, where effectively Ruse was its own thing, partnered with GTO Wizard, and now you have the ability to look up a lot of spots with very high accuracy. And some people are concerned about the future of online poker because of it. And I think we should first start by looking at it in two ways, one being cash and the other being tournaments, because I think that this stuff impacts tournaments in a much different way than it does cash. Yeah. I guess we can preface and start with cash, being that Patrick Howard, someone that works for Poker Detox, put out...
I don't know if he does anymore. I think he might have split off from Detox.
Interesting.
I think. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think I saw that on his Twitter somewhere a while back.
Okay, because, when I was there, that's kind of how I met him.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I worked with him a little bit when I was at Detox.
And he came out with a tweet thread basically saying, challenging anybody to open up Play Money tables and see how easy it is to play a bunch of tables in real time. And he thinks that he wants to use some basic math to figure out how, if you're only 1 to 2 tabling, how can you make $50,000 in EV if you're winning at roughly 5 big blinds per 100? And he makes it seem as if 1 KNL and less shouldn't be too worried about it. And then also looking up, if you do get caught, the ramifications for doing so means you lose all your money, you get banned, and there's no recourse in getting the funds back. So there's also this extra risk of it's not just a free be-all, end-all of people having the answers to a bunch of different spots. Where there is some sort of pushback, and I ran a Twitter Spaces last night actually for a few hours, and Daniel was in there kind of fighting the good fight, being the ambassador of the people. And we kind of had this back and forth where he's of the impression that it's not going to not necessarily change much, But when it comes to the stuff that's going on, this stuff's always been happening, and there's definitely uproar at the start, and then we'll kind of see how things go. And then my take is people are going to be a lot more proficient in higher equity spots. And let's just look at that from a cash game perspective, right? You start looking up 4-bet pots in real time. You can look up spots that you don't necessarily know very well versus the spots that you do know pretty well. Like if you know if a spot is a range bet, because most people are still going to be relatively proficient being winners at high stakes poker, they'll know what spots are range bets through study. They're not really going to be looking at the easy spots, so to speak, but more of the complex or interesting ones after maybe check raise checking in a 3-bet pot and trying to figure out how to not lose EV anymore. And that could be very, very dangerous.
Like these low frequency spots, kind of like where like you're not going to, so you're saying it's hard to study every spot, right?
Correct. Well, it's impossible.
But you can get into a very high equity situation and that you haven't studied, and then you can just look it up real quick, and then boom, you get the answer.
Yeah. And of course, the wizard, I like using the wizard. The wizard is going to want to work on security protocols and things along those lines, because for them, the longer poker exists, the more their tool is applicable. Where if poker just becomes an online wasteland and nobody gets to play or win anymore, they lose their business too. So they're incentivized to have things in place that allows them to still have market share, but also not completely, I don't know if apocalyptize is the right word, you know, but they don't want it to become a wasteland where no one plays anymore.
Just like collapse the market, basically.
Yeah.
Like like you say, if the popularity of poker decreases, you can't run a business based on, you know, people who want to study poker.
Like user accrual.
Right, exactly.
How can you get more people if they're all leaving?
Yeah, precisely. They need to make sure that their business model is something that as poker continues to grow, they can continue to grow as well. Like if they start doing stuff that kills online poker long term or affects the future of poker negatively, of course it negatively affects them.
Yeah. I guess a topic of conversation that I brought up yesterday, which I would curious to hear you guys' opinion on, would be that, let's say, well, first, sites and training operators never really worked together in some ways, you know? We're now with the Ruse, or with the Wizard AI, it kind of makes sense for poker sites online to do security checks to work with these database lookups. But the issue, in my opinion, could be if new custom companies come up that aren't working with sites. Where, let's say, a site, like let's just use, for example, the Wizard is partnered with, let's just say like GG from the stuff that we saw on the Felt or whatever. And now if you play on GG, they have the hands that you've played, and you can see if you looked up stuff because the Wizard and the GG are together. Where now if you have a different database lookup that isn't involved in that as a third party and says, hey, if you use this, we have basically the exact same features, but you wouldn't get caught.
Right.
These things are definitely possible, and if not public, already private, because we know how slow public is to market integration with private stuff.
For sure, and I think the issue that we deal with is the same as we always deal with any kind of technological thing like this, is that it's just an arms race, right? It's just like Wizard came out with this AI. Okay, that proves it's possible to do this. Now, someone out there who has, you know, nefarious intent, that wants to cheat, is going to say, how can we do this, but without getting detected by whatever measures are in place for the sites? And eventually, technology will reach the point where somebody who has the right incentives and the right access will, or at least could, find some way to just build something that gets around whatever safeguards are in place. And so the safeguards get stronger, and then the tech gets stronger, and the safeguards do, and et cetera, right? So we just get locked in this endless battle to stay one step ahead of the curve. And I made a tweet yesterday or the day before that was just kind of talking about how, like, unless we can figure out a way to make an unsolvable version of poker, we're always going to be stuck in this situation. Unless there's a way to make the game, to add some sort of non-mathematical aspect to the game, some sort of aspect that you can't, like live poker with tells and things like that. Like, unless there's a way to make it impossible, not just difficult, but impossible to use technology conceptually to solve something, we're always going to be dealing with this problem, because the tech's always going to get better, the security gets better, and it goes back and forth like that.
Yeah.
Yep. So I guess it's a good shift into the tournament segment of it all, where there's definitely a big difference when it comes to the roadmap of what the Wizard is trying to accomplish and things that they should do because they are important for studying and being used as tools. The issue is when the tool becomes the player, for lack of a better way to put it. So now if you're looking at ICM spots, you're looking at ICM post flop, you're looking at final two tables of tournaments, where now if you're making deep runs, this is just a different version of ghosting, right? Where before you were being ghosted by a human that may or may not have the right answer based off of previous track record or experience or things along those lines, versus a mathematically solved thing that we've agreed has at the very least a win rate. It's arguable to what extent it's winning, right? But we know that this is a winning tool in today's climate. And we as a market or an industry have become a lot smarter than days of old where the toughest thing, the cheating was just ghosting. Where now it's like, okay, the cheating is this machine that can, at some point, if we're looking not too far into the future, but couple years maybe, where you can input payouts for a tournament, input stack depths at a final table, and now see what your ranges are supposed to be in every spot for every hand. Now that gets very, very dangerous. So there's a bunch of different solutions that people are trying to come up with, but I think Patrick Leonard, a lot of Patricks today. So Patrick Leonard put out a tweet thread about how he sees the Wizard AI coming out being one of like the biggest, most important days in poker's recent history.
That's still Patrick Howard's tweet. There we go.
Where he at? I'm trying to find it on my end just because.
I think this thread brings up a lot of good points. I think that Pat's kind of. I'm glad that he clarified that. You know, he's spoken to the guys at Wizard and that they aren't out there like trying to kill poker, or you know that they do care about game integrity and things like that, because
I mean they should, because it directly benefits them for them not to kill poker.
Say, as someone who makes content for Wizard, like if I felt like they were out there trying to kill poker or trying to help people cheat, like I wouldn't be making content for them, you know. So like
full disclosure, Matt Hunt does make
of course
videos
like I guess I you know I have an investment in this, in the sense that you know I use these types of tools, like I enjoy using them to study and everything. I obviously don't use them in real time, but a big part of
I hope not.
You know, of course, but like a big part of this debate, I think, has become. I think there's an atmosphere now where a lot of people who don't necessarily have close familiarity with GTO Wizard are starting to root for Wizard to fail, because they think that Wizard is like this evil company that's out there trying to kill poker, you know?
It becomes E-Corp to some people.
Yeah, precisely. Like, it's a Mr. Robot reference, right? Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, like, Wizard becomes this all-powerful poker company that's, like, they have all these tools and they're all trying to make the games impossible to win in, and, like, that's just not how it is. It's not how it is at all. But at the same time, I think there are obviously concerns that we have to address in the future, and there's a lot of good debate going on right now about how exactly we actually do that.
Yeah, so I guess you don't have to go back to the tweet thread because I have it to the right of me. But I guess we'll start with Patrick's thinking that like PLO might become a much bigger game in the recent present, just because now with all of these tools and lookups for games that are solved, like vanilla tournaments, rather than like the PKOs and deeper sort of more complex spots, if we're looking at Chip EV specifically.
Bring back 7-card stud.
Bring back mixed games, right?
Yeah,
so now maybe mixed games come back. PLO has a boom because PLO has so much action and gamble. And last night Daniel was talking about this.
Look what we saw on Hustler.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Hustler streams are absolutely cooking because it's just high stakes gambling, and the pre-flop mistakes that people do make aren't as costly in a game like PLO where there's so much more variance than No Limit.
Right.
Like Daniel gave an example where if somebody calls a 3-bet out of position with 6-4 off in No Limit, they're drawing dead.
Right.
Somebody calls with like a Jack 6-4-7 single suit. Is it bad? Yeah, it's bad, but you can still win. Right. The loss rate is not the same in something like No Limit.
Yeah.
So maybe this leads to PLO becoming a bigger game, and we're kind of seeing that now with the exposure it's getting from the Hustler scene.
Don't call 6'4" off opposition.
You weren't doing that anyways, Brian.
I was gonna say, like, when have you
Fold ace
ever
king there?
When have you ever done that? I think that the thing that I'm the thing that makes me a little apprehensive about the idea of like some huge PLO boom is I feel like for the most part PLO is mostly popular with people who already got into poker through No Limit Hold'em. I don't think I see too many people coming across PLO as their first encounter with poker and then just immediately getting that before they play No Limit. So I still think that there's a lot of attraction about No Limit Hold'em because of the simplicity of understanding it. That whole cliche about it takes a minute to learn, a lifetime to master, you know? And I wouldn't feel too confident about PLO being an easy game for people to pick up and get into poker for the first time as their vehicle. So PLO's great, you know, PLO's fun. It's a great game, but I also think that I can't see a future where it's somehow, where it's somehow just because it's less easily solved. Like I can't see a future where it somehow grows beyond the
Right. There's no like, there's not going to be like the flippening of you know,
the flippening.
Yeah.
Where the two games
Right.
change
Where they talk about that in crypto, right? Where like they're saying where Ethereum is eventually market cap is going to overtake Bitcoin, and you know it's probably not gonna. Some people think it will happen, but it's never gonna happen. But like Bitcoin is No Limit Hold'em, and Pillow is Ethereum essentially in this situation.
Yeah, I'm not enough of a crypto guy to know that that's what you were referencing. But yeah, it's a good way to describe it. I don't think there's going to be a flippening.
Yeah, I don't think that No Limit Hold'em is going to be a less popular game, but more so that PLO will just get some of the people that do play No Limit already to maybe start dabbling and playing more things. Also, the idea of adding new gimmicks to games makes them a little bit more interesting to me.
I think
like at the start, people were upset that PKOs made up more of the daily structure, where most of the time you only want to buy in once and maybe twice if you like bust super early level 1, because the later you register, the less your chips are going to be worth as you don't cover as many people and things along those lines, the ability to collect some of the prize pool. Where now it's like, oh, these games are still protected for a little bit longer because the answers are never clear, right? Asymmetric stacks plus bounty prizes are different. Bounty math adds different things and layers to the game, or maybe people are making mistakes and not fighting for bounties enough, or not ISOing enough, or things along those lines, right? So adding new gimmicks to a game, not trying to change No Limit Hold'em as a whole, right? Not trying to add extra cards. We're not trying to remove any cards, but more so trying to find ways that makes poker more brain solvy, right? I said yesterday, and I thought it was a pretty like punctual statement, that the easier a game is to solve, the less we want it in the arena.
Right.
Because the easier you get the answer, the more people just have the ability to now get that answer.
That's why Limit Hold'em died. It's because that Limit Hold'em, or I mean, I guess it didn't technically completely die, but like it's why it was no longer the game of choice, because there were too many obvious right answers. You know, too many obvious things that's like, this is just objectively the best way to play this hand. And we reached the point of solving Limit Hold'em back in
the game tree is much less.
Yeah, Limit Hold'em was solved in like 2014 or something, you know, like almost 10 years ago. So like I think there's a lot more potential in mixed games growing. Like I want to see No Limit Deuce to 7 grow, because I think that game is so. I honestly enjoy watching that game more than I enjoy watching.
I did. I watched when Jay Mercer won his bracelet. I pretty much watched the whole final table, and I really didn't know much about the game itself, and I was very intrigued the entire time. I was like, I need to start playing this game. It looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope other games do grow. You know, I hope we respond to this by saying, okay, let's help these other games grow. Let's play these other games. Let's dive into these games that aren't easily solved. You know.
Yeah. I mean, it's the tough in between, because people having this naysay approach of poker is dying is mostly coming from strictly an online environment. As this year, like live poker has been bigger than it ever was. This was the biggest recorded main event field that we've ever seen. And why would there be any reason that for next year it wouldn't be any any different.
The people I feel really bad for at this point in time are the people who live in countries where there's very little live poker, and online poker is their only real access to poker as a whole.
Yeah.
And so I do think we're in a problematic position where we risk it once online poker does become once it does become even more apocalyptic than it already is, we risk being in this position where there's only specific countries in the world that really have significant access to poker. And that obviously restricts the game's potential for growing worldwide long term, because you're going to have certain countries that if they can't play online and they don't have live, it's just a dead zone for poker. And that obviously, it's bad for the game long term. So I feel bad for those people.
Yeah, I guess kind of going through a bunch of different points here that I think are a little bit more important than others. This year we kind of saw, I don't know if it was the first time ever, maybe you guys can help me with that, but for an online event, they had a live final table. So maybe there's some sort of shifting going on between real name versus account names and having everything
I guess they kind of did
named.
that for the main event, for the COVID main event.
They
right?
did do that.
Yeah.
At the same time, when it comes down to having more I guess we could start with the bigger things and then maybe go to potentially some smaller things too, where if someone's playing a daily schedule, they can still win 5 figures a week if they run pretty well, where these final tables can be worth a lot of money. Where at what point do we think that having live final tables for events with a certain, call it prize threshold, become more prevalent in today's space?
I personally think for bracelet events that run specifically in
Vegas, New Jersey.
Yeah, region locked web online arenas, I think it's a great idea. I think if you put
because you're already there, it's not like someone has to travel across the world.
Precisely. But I also think that you could quite easily do a thing where you have an online series where all the final tables take place in the same location over a 2-week period.
Yeah.
And so, people play a bunch of online tournaments in some nationwide festival or global festival. And then if you make
GG World Festival.
Right. And then
and then a month later, everyone meets up in Vegas and plays it out.
If you make a final table, maybe they add to the prize pool travel packages for the final tables or something. Doing stuff like that for big events, I think, is a cool idea.
That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting because, I never really thought of it in that way, but that way maybe can potentially work, where instead of, a good example would be for the bracelet event that Sam Salver won of the online live hybrid mix.
Yeah.
They played the final table the day after, but if somebody final tabled that tournament from New Jersey, because you're allowed to play that bracelet event from New Jersey, you now have to fly from where you're going to Vegas to get there and then go back to doing your normal thing, which could deter some recreational players from playing.
That's exactly what I mean. I don't think that's that fair. I don't think that's particularly fair when it's not just Nevada that's allowed to play. But if they had given them even a week, even 4 days or something, you could make it happen in a way where it becomes a bit more feasible for the New Jersey players. And then if you were to double down on that and make it all the online final tables happen in the last couple of weeks of the series or something like that, or I don't know, whatever else they want to do. But a bit like when WPT does those things where they hire out the HyperX esports arena and then they'll do 3 back-to-back final tables in 3 days of events that happened 6 months previously, right?
Florida and then Choctaw.
Yeah, and then they do all the final tables. You could just have WSOP do that, but expanded, right? They could do a whole bunch of online events throughout the year, and then all the final tables happen in Vegas during the series. There's a bunch of ways you could do this to neutralize the possibility of people just ghosting, buying accounts, VPNing, shit like
multiple
that.
accounts, right?
Yeah, I guess the same thing could then be said to copy paste the structure for something like Stars doing Scoop or doing WCoop, where you play all of the events and then there is a certain window of time to play out the final tables of maybe some of the bigger ones and some you don't need to have as a final table.
Yeah.
Maybe for smaller stakes ones where it's less
that's up top,
the cost of going isn't really, it costs more to go to this venue than it is to play the FT.
Yeah.
But for the bigger, higher stakes stuff where you're playing for hundreds of thousands of dollars, where these concerns are definitely around the corner of having in real time ICM pre-flop ranges, being able to play spots perfectly, being able to play PKO stuff perfectly, where if you can have some of these things played at during a certain duration of time that people are aware of before entering the tournament. And sure, maybe you get some people to not play the tournament anymore, but you also might get some people saying, hey, this is how they're combating the security fears that I've faced, because I have a bunch of friends. Everyone knows people that doesn't play online because they think that there's something going on.
100%.
They think that there's cheating going on in some regards, or site being rigged, this, that, whatever. But having these live final tables definitely takes away that element of the fears that can come up.
It combats both RTA and multi-accounting. Like it combats two things at once, right? So I think it's I don't want to say it's a no-brainer, but I think it's a really good pathway that they've started themselves on by having this one event, and I hope they do more of it.
It's tough because people are always going to have the concerns of gaming the system, but you can always game any system.
Yeah.
You know, there's always going to be ways to get around it when it comes to the whole RTA multi-account, where if people kind of have a stable and then their horses play and then they play up to FT and then their horse has to play FT, that's still the difference than somebody that's not them playing the final table for the most amount of money. And I guess Daniel said yesterday on the spaces, there's just so much like knowledge that I had no information of, because how the fuck could I know anything? But he was saying that when it comes to player versus player type of transactions, the site can't get involved, right? Someone's not actively cheating the site, so the site can't really do anything. Like they're not. He said, of course, if I was like king of the castle, I would want to say who we banned and why we banned them. But that's a security breach that sites cannot touch.
Yeah.
So there are some things that we just can't know from a public perspective because of legal issues of things outside of the poker community.
Yeah.
So like the more that we put things into our own hands and trying to find ways and solutions, and maybe there starts to be some form of, Patrick was talking about having like a union of, not union, wrong word, but like a group of like highly respected people in the industry coming together and kind of having a conversation about what they think is best for the game, to then have operators of sites and of live venues then listen and then kind of go back and forth as to what they think is the most crucial for keeping the game alive. Because I think that's the big thing here, is how we see poker continue to exist versus become the smash and grab kind of apocalyptic era of,
at the end of the day,
how do I
we
get all my money?
want the game to survive and thrive.
And I think operators want that as well, because the longer the game runs, the more money they make.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of and now I think more so than ever, higher stakes pros are aware of ecosystem flaws. Like with games dying, pros lose money. Where before, if people stopped playing, there were still ways to win at high stakes. Where now with all this lookup tools and things along those lines, it makes it much more of the player's responsibility to try to help out where they can and say, hey, I want to keep this game running. How can I help you do these things? And how do we get to a mutual agreement? Like GG had that high stakes boycott, which went super well. And Elke obviously was a great ambassador for the cash game side of things, talking to GG reps and getting that stuff all sorted and figured out. So now it's just a matter of being able to do that in kind of a larger scale. Yeah. He got me.
You.
He got
you. I know,
he started
Berkey
digging
feels.
his claws into my thigh. But yeah, like there's definitely that in between of trying to have everybody on the same page of how do we keep the game growing versus saying, okay, I think we've reached the ceiling and now it's all downhill from here. How do we get the most money from the ecosystem?
Yeah, and I think a big part of that whole safeguarding the future of the game thing is to address this perception that you kind of mentioned a minute ago, where people are where everybody knows people that don't play online because they have security fears.
Right. Yeah.
And I still hear stuff from people that I talk to, like students of mine and other recreational players that come into contact with. I still hear people saying like, oh, I don't trust this site. I don't trust that site. I don't play online because of this or that, or you hear it at the table all the time as well, like at live events. Like you'll hear people
especially
say,
at live events, right?
Yeah, you'll just hear people saying, I don't trust online, I don't play online. But the last thing we want is for that trust to erode in the game as a whole, Because if people start thinking that it's not just a question of online poker being suspect in some way, but if people start to believe that they're being cheated when they're playing live in some way, if people start to not feel like their money is secure, all these things, these do, at least in my opinion, these do a lot more damage to the long-term future of the game than any individual piece of technology or any individual advancement in how we learn and how we study. Because in the end, if recreational players stop feeling like they can confidently play poker for fun without risking being cheated or having money stolen from them or whatever, if recs stop playing for fun, that's when the game truly dies.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes back to the whole, situation we have going on in Texas too, because it's like, like that's a big ecosystem. There's a lot of money in Texas. There's a lot of players. They all want to play. So we want poker to, thrive in Texas, right? If it grows in Texas, it's all that's just gonna be good for the game everywhere. So hopefully they can figure out a situation to, get the security measures down where people don't have to fear being shot or robbed.
I mean, we've come so far as a community from when poker first became a thing online. Like Daniel was telling stories about this place called Planet Poker.
I used to play on Planet. That was the first. That was the first site I've ever played on. I was in my freshman year in college. Planet Poker.
I heard it had like sounds and stuff. It'd be like
was part of that.
And then like you might disconnect sometimes. But who would have thought that way back when that stuff existed? Now, call it 20 years since then, we now have people being able to have careers as strictly playing online tournaments, so they can not just make money, but make 7 figures if you end up drilling off a tournament. It's truly crazy how far we've come in such a short time. And with new industries, there's always going to be new problems. Like, it's a new version of the Wild Wild West now. Right. Where way back when, like, you got caught cheating, like, you may or may not be in a desert somewhere. Where now it's just like the cheating that goes on is with a lot stronger of like technology, but it also means that the people that are trying to keep the things safe have that technology and maybe things that even more that we don't even know of.
Yeah. Right.
It's not like a site's going to tell you how they're keeping it secure.
No.
Nowadays, when you get found cheating, you just get buried up to your neck in the desert on social media.
You basically just get flamed until you're out of the community.
Like you just get metaphorically murdered by everybody on social media. You don't get actually shot in the head.
Some might even argue it's kind of worse because now you have to live with the disrespect of your peers.
I guess we should ask Ali whether it's worse or not.
It was coming.
I mean, it is kind of it's a strange thing now when it comes to the ramifications of the punishments for something like this, because you can make so much money, but when it comes to court of law, they won't see it the same as like grand larceny. Right. Because how can you explain EV to a jury? How can you explain that this person took X amount of money through these reasons?
I mean, fucking Postle got away with it. Like,
for all intents and purposes, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, he's a deadbeat now or whatever, but like he got away with the cheating that he clearly and very obviously did, you know? And it was in large part because it's incredibly difficult to convince a courtroom of cheating at gambling, because the complexities of poker are just super hard for someone who's outside the game to understand in a short and simple way that can allow you to say, yeah, this guy definitely cheated, and at the same time, variance is such that, like in the Postle case, they were able to just say, well, you can't 100% say he didn't just run.
Yeah, the bar for reasonable doubt is much lower.
Right, precisely.
It's a fair argument too. Like it makes sense. Like how can you really prove that this guy's cheating?
Right.
It's likely, but how likely?
It's it's likely enough that everybody agrees on it, but that's not the standard for proving
for
guilt
persecuting
in a court of law.
someone.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So like, I think that we always have this set of issues that we deal with as a byproduct of not being an industry that has some kind of governing body, like with any other sport, any other real discipline, like even like chess or whatever, like they have governing bodies which they sort of police everything related to that discipline, and we don't have that. And I don't know if we'll ever have that. I don't know if we can have that.
Yeah.
And it's a tricky thing for us to navigate.
It'd be kind of sick if there was like the NFL, but for poker. Where like,
well, that's what the GPL was trying to be.
Like the Players Association?
Yeah, apparently, or the formerly failed Epic Poker League.
Yeah, there was the Epic Poker League. There was the Global Poker League. There was, this is more on the union side, but there was the Poker Players Association.
But how do we make them actually work?
Well, I don't think anybody knows. You know, I think they keep failing because we keep running into these situations where not everybody's pulling in the same direction. You know, we have one group of people with one incentive, but then as soon as people start doing one thing, quite often there's somebody else who could stand to make more money from doing the opposite.
Yeah.
And suddenly we're now splitting our incentives again. Like we've got people like I think Andrew Barber, who was on here the other day, said like as soon as you start boycotting a certain environment because their rake is too high, well now those are the softest games on the planet.
Right, and
so
people are going to cross the picket line or whatever you want to call it.
Right?
Yeah.
So like it's just incredibly difficult to get people in a competitive domain like this where money is the object to pull in the same direction. Really, really difficult.
There needs to be a way to make everybody's incentives be aligned, that this is how you make the most money, but kind of prove it, not just as a long-term thing, but additionally try to make it seem like it's also not good for you in the short term as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like, I think a lot of people, we all mostly understand that the growth of the game and the good of the game is for our benefit in the long run. But there are plenty of people who would rather make an extra certain amount of money in the short term, even if it's sacrificing. It's a smash and grab approach. Like, and it's really, really hard for us to combat that. It just, for anybody who's willing to just dip out of poker as soon as they make X amount of dollars, like they're not going to care about the long term.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. So ultimately it's people who are in the game for the long run that have to take responsibility for this.
Yeah. And I think this is probably a good start when it comes to figuring out not only actionable solutions, but try to get maybe boards and things of that sort together. Like I know that GG had some form of integrity council where it's like Fedor, Chewy, Kuhn.
I've heard absolutely zero about that since they started.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. It's like, what's really been going on? Like, are we supposed to be knowing things? Or is it supposed to be like weekly
just
newsletters?
Working behind the scenes? Yeah,
exactly.
We really don't know.
Kind of don't have any ideas of that stuff, but I guess bringing this stuff up more to not just only having operators, like GG created the integrity council, so to speak, where now we're trying to see is, okay, who do we want to be able to be leaders of the community and speak to operators in a way that can get voices being heard, as well as now getting to a point of making and creating positive change?
I think if they wanted to,
God! Bro just kept the camera on me. He knew Mal was speaking, but he knew he saw Chauncey biting my thumb.
Chauncey was gonna get you.
He'd been getting me.
Chauncey's gonna get all the scratches and bites in before he leaves over the pond.
It's his last chance.
He's becoming more Euro as we speak.
No, here he comes.
Here he comes.
He's clawing.
It's sort of. Did I completely lost my train of thought? Oh yeah. It's an opportunity. If they wanted to, WSOP could take the lead on this. Like if they wanted to become the centerpiece of the industry when it comes to just sort of dictating what the policies are going to be and, showing leadership in that regard, they could, because if there's one brand in this industry that has a sense of power or a sense of significance more so than any other, it's the WSOP brand, because they are probably the longest standing brand in poker, considering they've been around for more than 50 years. There's no other company, there's no other tour, there's nothing else in poker that's been around for more than 50 years. If they wanted to take responsibility on this front, they could, but I don't think they have even the tiniest bit of interest in that.
It's tough to really make that argument, right? In the sense of games becoming bigger over year over year, now that the COVID stuff is gone, as well as the increase of, I don't even know why. Like, why there's so many more.
I honestly don't know either. It's weird. I've been talking about this with a lot of people, like the idea that there's this huge boom in live poker and nobody really knows why it's happening. It's very strange.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that could be a conversation for another time, as we're probably running a little bit short.
Yeah. I mean, we're all obviously happy to see it, but it's not.
For sure.
It's not easily attributable to any specific factor. Like,
it's probably a multiple things. I mean, it could be people come back, like getting back into it during COVID. There's, I mean, there is the real inflation thing, right? I mean, like, there's like money is a lot cheaper now. Like, it's, so people have maybe more cash than they did before, and multitude of things. Shout out to Lee Jones with the super chat. As always, thank you, Lee. He said Planet Poker published their shuffling algorithm only to show that it could be duplicated and the cards predicted, and then they never recovered from that.
Ouch.
Which makes sense.
They're never going to financially recover from
that.
that.
Never going to financially recover from that.
And I'm never going to physically recover from the bites from this orange cat.
We are off for a week here, guys.
Yeah, we're going to be gone.
We need a break, Had a long series. Everyone needs a little bit of a break, so you're going to LA.
I'm going to LA.
Going to LA, nice. I'm going to San Diego with the family for a few days. Matt would.
I'm not going anywhere.
What do you got planned for post World Series?
I don't know. Content making, coaching.
Nothing stops for you. No break. No.
I mean, I don't know when I'm going to take a break. Eventually, I will.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Recharge the batteries.
I would like to say one final salute. Everyone salute to Chauncey.
Salute to Chauncey.
Salute to Chauncey.
We will see you.
You were a great orange cat.
We'll have to find a duplicate
you will be a great orange cat in the future.
Hopefully we get to see the orange cat back when Marley comes back. But
anyways, while we're on break, just remember, Brooks' course is out, so go to softwarey.io to check that out. And seats are going fast for the Academy, so if you're interested, go to academy.softwarey.io for more info.
Alrighty, that's going to do it for us for this week and the next, and we will see you in 2 Mondays from now.
Sounds great. Peace.